Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. We're right at that noon mark. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Olivia Fryer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix. And we are so super excited to have this class today. There's a lot of you here, so that tells me that this is a very much needed topic. So, toilet training. So, we're super excited to have Dr. Rodrigo Mendoza from Team for Kids here to show us some tips and strategies that we can use at home to get on the right page to getting our kids toilet trained in ways that we can support them. So I am going to turn this over to Dr. Mendoza, but real quick, I just want to mention if you can hold your questions till the end. This presentation has a lot of really great information, and I'm pretty sure that he will answer your question throughout his wonderful presentation. But otherwise, any personal questions, let's save them to the end, and I'll stop recording at that point in time to make sure to ensure your privacy, okay? And you're welcome to use the chat feature as well. So again, Dr. Mendoza, go ahead and take it away.
Okie Let me see. Can you see the presentation?
Yep, I can see it. You're good to go.
Okay. So, give me 1 second. Let me set it up. Again, my name is Rodrigo Mendoza. I am originally from Chile, so you're going to hear that accent over there. Glad to be here today to do the presentation about toileting training. This presentation is an introduction to the training. It's going to contact mainly the most important components. I try to figure out what is the most important things that will help you to be successful through the training. We do this in clinical settings, and usually we do these interventions for children that have autism. But these techniques and these tactics, they can work with typically developing children or any other kind of maybe disabilities. During the training today, we are going to have a small introduction about the preparation section is going to be directed to the environment that needs to be to maximize success. Then we talk about the toilet readiness. The toilet readiness is mainly some signals or maybe skills that your child should have to be successful with the toileting training. And that's very important, as you don't want to include a lot more variables when you are training later on. Then we go into the bladder control training, which is so they can pee in the toilet, and the self-initiation component, which both of them usually they are kind of intertwined, and we need to start preparing through that to create the right support and the right environment for your child to do this without your support. That's an introduction. So ABA usually deals with behavior. And behavior means that we don't concentrate on what the person is. We say, what is the behavior that we can observe? And for the training today, we are going to talk about two behaviors. One is the behavior of reducing the accident. So an accident can be any sort of void under a situation that you don't want to happen. And then we are talking about voiding, which is what we want for your child to go and void in the toilet. So these are the two behaviors that we are going to be interacting. For ABA, which is applied behavioral analysis, the most important thing is that we can measure our success. So usually what we do through the whole intervention is to keep track of these behaviors. So later on, I'm going to show you a form that you can use, and you can truly use any sort of paper to keep track of the accident and keep track also of the successes. Then in time, you can see, we are making improvements. Although it's not perfect, you can see improvements. And that is very important. I'm going to mention something else in this portion of the presentation. Although we want 100% of the effectivity of this treatment, usually children, they are learning these skills. So you are going to see that even though in time maybe they have success, they are every now and then they are going to have accidents, and that is okay. It's not going to be 100%, but in time you are going to notice that the success rate is going to be increasing and they are going to be independent. Preparation. The first preparation is to think about your time, meaning we are going to initiate this toileting training. Now, what we use in the clinic is what we call intensive, meaning an intensive treatment is when we plan every single thing that is going to happen across the day. So for us, we are thinking about when are we going to check for dry or wet? When are we going to take the child to the toilet? We are going to be thinking about the number of time that we are going to offer liquids and any other variables. Also, we are thinking of who is going to be involved. In your case, you should involve the whole family because they are all going to be in one point or another, maybe helping with this. And also, maybe you want to inform the teacher or other therapist about what you try to do at home. And that way, everybody maintain the same consistent treatment for this sort of situation. Also, if you are doing, depending the intensity of this training, you may be considered to start determining when things are going to happen as maybe are going to affect the child's schedule. And also start thinking on the long run. If I'm going to have maybe plan a vacation, maybe it's not the right time to toileting training. So maybe give you plenty of time to come into awareness of any sort of situation that can disrupt the continuity of this training. All this is super important as you are maintaining this consistent situation. For the child, it's easier to see signals that is going to help them to present the right behavior. And this is particularly important for children with autism, which they are, many of them, they are missing many social cues. And so the physical world is what they are seeing. And as we are maintaining a consistency coming to the control of that system, then it's easier to train these new abilities. This is particularly important, and although the majority of children love smiles and different things from parents and from social contact, and it's more especially for children with autism, the social component sometimes is not that reinforcing. Hence, what we need to do is to find something that your child cannot live with. So that's very important. And we just save that for the toileting, for voiding, not for sitting, not for being in the bathroom, but for voiding. And sometimes that sort of situation is going to also need time to prepare. So for example, let's say the most important thing for your child is to use iPad. And if we try to remove it to just using it for toileting, maybe it's going to create a lot of emotional responses for that child. So we need to train that situation prior to. Regardless, it's very important to find a potent reinforcer. And that reinforcer is going to be out of reach in the bathroom. And sometimes it's even recommendable that the child can see it. Of course, you need to take into consideration many other situations with children that they are going to try to access the toilet. So depending what is the reality for your child, find the best way to do so. Regardless, the conclusion of a void should obtain a reinforcer. So that is an important component of all this. Home preparations. I have done many of these training at homes. And sometimes, because we are going to have accidents, sometimes the child is going to just find the place that is more pleasant to them. And so as you are preparing for this toileting training, it's very important to find a space that you know that you can clean, that is not going to have something that is truly important to you. When we do intensive training that can be done during a weekend, we just select sometime the kitchen area because usually it's easy to clean, and also an immediate access to the bathroom. But houses are all different, so you decide what is the best place. Advice to have a lot of towels because initially you are seeing more accidents, and that way you can be ready. So have ready the change of clothes, so there are no barrier for you into the implementation of this training. Important is to have a bathroom that is safe for the child, as they may present disruptive behavior in the bathroom. So you don't want to have things that maybe they can throw and things that they can create more disruption. So start thinking about this home preparation is very important. And then this is a very important component. You are going to receive also a PDF document with relation to these prerequisites. One of these prerequisites is that the child needs to be able to hold. So as you are preparing for the training, maybe a week or two prior to the training, start seeing it by checking if the child is holding. If he or she can hold for more than 2 hours, then you are in a good place to start the toileting training. The other thing is the readiness, physical readiness. Is the child able to do the activities that they are required in the bathroom? So even sitting on the toilet, can they do that without kind of presenting disruptive behaviors? Don't, maybe you want to train those skills first. Sometimes children with sensitivities to environmental conditions, they are going to be reactive to sitting on the toilet without clothing, or they are going to maybe be reactive to the water or other agents in the bathroom. So you want to assess and prepare the child for that contingencies too. And then the other important component is if the child is following simple directions. And that way you don't have to be dealing with that barrier later on. All these are very important components within the toileting training preparation. And if they have these skills, doesn't guarantee success, but it's going to increase the success probability. Let's talk about bladder control now. So this is a little bit of the biology of what we are trying to train. As you know, the bladder get replenished with different after liquids or uh, residual from the processing of food. And so as this bladder start filling up and time starts sending signal to the brain, there is so that is the sensation that we want to train. We want to train that the child recognizes those signals as in time, those signals are going to tell them, hey, bathroom. So that's the association we want to generate. So feeling, signal, bathroom. And so that sort of associative learning is what we try to generate with the training. For that, as you can see, the most opportunity that we have to feel that bladder, the more opportunity that you are going to have to train the relation between bladder, voiding, and reinforcement. What we truly are training is one of these sphincters. So in the bladder, there are two sphincters. One is the internal, which is automatic, meaning involuntary. As the bladder fills, that sphincter is going to open. So they don't have control of that. But when that happens, when that sphincter opens and sends signals to the brain, and now there is an urgency, pee time. And that section, that sort of relation, that idea of, oh, now I'm feeling this sensation peeing is what we train. In particular, we are training the second sphincter, and we call it the external one, and that's involuntary, meaning the child needs to be able to hold it. That's what is important in the prerequisite, that maybe the child has the physical ability to hold that muscle in place, and that way that is not just voiding without control. is an important component of the toileting training experience. So that's why we train the sphincter muscle voluntary movement. For that to happen, as you can see, we need water, we need fluids. So there are two things that the research have demonstrated that they are making the whole thing better, meaning that it's going to increase the success. One is the removal of the diapers. So when we train, is usually we remove diapers and it's only for underwear. So we have the underwear, and that gives us the opportunity for us to first check for wet and dry easy in an easier manner, but also it's a signal to the child that something changed. It's not the same situation as before. It's going to create the idea that the environment changed. There are things that I need to pay attention. In addition to that, some children are very kind of sensitive to the wetness. So as they are going to have a small accident, maybe that will create a reaction of sort that is going to make the idea of the accident more salient to them. For all this to happen, so as we have the underwear in place and no diapers, then we need to keep our child hydrated. We need to start giving 4 to 8 ounces of fluid every 30 minutes. Of course, for us, for example, when we receive the child in the clinic, the first 30 minutes, we kind of give a little more fluid. Across the session, maybe we can reduce the fluid intake. But regardless, it's very important to maintain that across your session, your training experience. As you see on the previous slides, as these bladders start filling, the signal is what we want to connect with the appropriate behavior. So that's very important. Especially as I'm going to show in these next slides, I'm going to show that they are going to need to go in on a schedule. So if you are not providing fluid, taking the child to the toilet is not going to make much difference because really it's nothing to void. So as you are thinking about all these different components, think about all the stuff that they are involved in the toileting training for success. In addition to this, across the whole experience, what we want to do is to start training also this communication type of activity, because communication is going to be the part that is very important during self-initiation. The child needs to be able to communicate that they need to use the bathroom. And so if they are nonverbal, we can use a card, like the toilet card. And so every time that we are training and we are taking the child to the toilet, we can point it, toilet or bathroom, and then we move to the toilet. And time that card, it may acquire an association with the physical place. And when we are in the transition to self-initiation, that card can be given to you as a signal, I need to go to the toilet. Also, they can use sign language to do that, or if they are able to make a sound like potty, we can train that through the toileting training, through the bladder control training. So as we are taking the child to the toilet, we can say potty or pee pee or any other words that you want to relate it with activity. And that way later on, in some form, the child can communicate the need of using the bathroom. So very important stuff. Bladder training. What we usually do for data collection purposes too, and also to start analyzing what is the occasion of the accident. As we are increasing the water consumption or the liquid consumption, now we're also going to do dry checks. Usually we do dry checks every 10 minutes, meaning every 10 minutes we go and check. If it's dry, then we say, good job being dry. And then we can even provide a small snack or something that is medium preferred for the child. If they are wet, we said we change our face. We don't want to celebrate the accident. And we say, you are wet. We need to change diaper. And we take the child to the bathroom to change. The routine about the changing the diaper as it was an accident. I'm sorry, to change him because they are not using diaper, my bad. The routine of changing the clothing as they have an accident is it need to be kind of per se neutral. If you celebrate the changing under the context of the accident, then maybe we are losing opportunities for that occasion to be reinforced. So what we want is to maintain the idea that this is an accident and we want to decrease accidents. So we present a neutral face, or even we can say present a maybe more stern face. Doesn't know what we do. Let's take it to the bathroom. We do the changes there in the bathroom, and then we keep going with the training. But we do these dry checks as we are seeing when the accidents are happening, so we can adjust the schedule. The schedule is when we are going to take this child to the bathroom. So let's say as I might do my dry checks every 10 minutes, and I'm noticing that the child is having an accident every 35 minutes. So then taking the child to the bathroom every 30 minutes is appropriate. Or if I'm noticing through the dry checks that the child is presenting accident every 20 minutes, maybe I need to take them every 19 minutes to avoid the accident. So the dry check is going to sometime inform the schedule to go into the bathroom for the toileting opportunity. Now, how long we sit the child in the toilet, on the toilet? It all depends. Some children, they require a little more time than others. We usually, what we try to do is to have the child in the clinic for no more than 5 minutes. So that's what we try to do. But you can do a more intense programming in which now you leave the child over there for more than 5 minutes as you are waiting for the occasion for that void to happen. Remember, the voiding is what we want to kind of reinforce. So we want to maintain the opportunities there through uh, consumption of liquids and also taking the child to the toilet often enough to contact the success, the PE, because in that moment immediately we provide the reinforcers. Okay. So what do you do during the toilet? So during toileting training or when you are on the toilet. So during the toileting training, when you are on the toilet, you can present maybe prompts like we are going to pee. Sometime we can maybe put a little bit of water in the area to generate the sensation. Sometimes it helps, but sometimes no matter what we do, it's not going to maybe the child is not going to void, and if they don't, and we reach our limit for the time to see the then we help to the process of dressing up and getting ready to maintain the activities of the day. Now, the activity or the process should be all positive. I will try to maintain a good environment for the toilet. Again, you can entertain the child when they're sitting as they are waiting for the void. But please do not present the most potent reinforcer because then what we are going to be training is to be sitting and not voiding, and we want to reserve the most potent reinforcement for the occasion in which they are going to void. So very important stuff. If your child does pee or poop, then immediately present praise. Hey, you make a big deal of it. Of course, depending the child, some children are more sensitive than others to that social reinforcement or that social presence. And we present immediately the reinforcer. Even when they are sitting on the toilet. I know some people want to present it later, but what it could create is the reinforcement is contacting other activities. And what we want is that reinforcer contacts the sensation and the void, which is going to create other signals. And now for that behavior, now there is something super positive happening. All that it gets all put together, that increases the opportunities for this behavior to be presented in the future as it generates the sensation of a positive things because this behavior. very important things that for us, voiding in the toilet is super important. But for the child, it's not that important. This is not a skill that they have. For them, it really doesn't matter where they pee. It's generally the same sensation of relief. What we try to create here is an environment in which voiding in the toilet is such an incredible opportunity to obtain something else. So it's very important to do that. Another small comment here is these things are biological in nature, meaning there is a signal coming from within. There is an idea of some sort of behavior. There is not much cognition in the beginning. So talking to the child about how important it is to pee, maybe it's not going to make any difference in this point. Of course, there are certain children who have maybe more abilities, cognitive abilities, that you could talk about toileting and present a social story that could help with them to void properly. But it all depends the level of cognition and abilities of your child. So keep that in consideration. We'll talk a little more about that later. Now, let's say your child is wetting, meaning he doesn't have a diaper anymore. So now you notice a little bit of pee coming down, uh, or you notice a little bit of humidity in the pants. Immediately say for boys again, no wet pants, and let's go to the bathroom. And you take the child to the bathroom, remove the clothes, and sit him or her on the toilet to see if you can make a little bit of this accident a success. The child release a little in the toilet, then you can provide the reinforcer, but in a lesser kind of with maybe less amount of reinforcement, less time with the reinforcement, with the reinforcer. So it's an important to differentiate between the wetting to a proper voiding. So we need to make those differentiation too. But if you can make an accident a success, that is a good opportunity too. You can also fake the pee, meaning because they are ready, they are peeing, maybe there is nothing left, but maybe you can throw something in the toilet that simulate the peeping or even the pooping and provide the reinforcer. The intent is to start creating those associations that now the accident is no reward. Peeing and waiting in the toilet is an important part, and they are going to get a lot more. So in time, the child is going to want to go to the toilet more and more. That's an important part. That's why reinforcement is so important within the whole routine. The other components, you are going to notice, the child has a full accident. Let's say you take the child now from the spot of the accident to the bathroom, and it's important not to make uh, a positive situation with this. The accident is not something that we want to reward. So I'm not saying you to be stern, but I would say at least to be neutral in your faces, in your face. And that way the child notice that this is an accident that is not appropriate. Of course, there are techniques to make this a little more unpleasant. And if you are not having success with the reinforcers, sometimes we need to make the situation with the accident more unpleasant. So now the child is aware that these are not good things. So they are changing their behavior. But for the most part, if you notice an accident happening with a change in demeanor, take them and do the whole process. Try to make them do it independently, and that way is a lot more work having the accident than avoiding in the toilet. I gave it to you this form. This form have a lot of more information maybe that you need, but I want to pay attention for you to. I want you to pay attention to an area that in which we are taking the data of how much fluid the child is consuming. And then when the time is happening. Why this is important? Because sometimes it gives you the idea that if I present or of the child consume 3 ounces of liquid at 7:30, notice an accident by 8, maybe now you start making correlations. So then you can calculate when to take the child to the toilet to increase the opportunities for success. Again, like I mentioned, you cannot see the bladder, so you need to find ways to measure the opportunities to take the child to the toileting area, and that way you increase the opportunity to provide reinforcement for the appropriate behavior. The other thing also we take into consideration is the different, if we have an accident or no accident, you are going to see the forms. They also have a section in which we can take data about when this accident happened. This is what up. I just wanted to show it to you so you can see that that's the data that we need and that you're going to need to have to make really good decision within toileting training. As you are implementing the toileting training, of course, in the beginning, as you remove the diaper, you're going to see a lot more accidents because now you can see physically the change. But don't worry about it. That's part of the process. Again, like I mentioned before, be prepared, have an area in which these accidents are going to happen, have a lot of towels so you can cover up and have a ready change of clothes ready for you in the bathroom, and that way it's all easy for you. Remember, the preparation is super important because when these accidents are going to start happening, it creates a lot of issues, not just for you, but also for the child. From our experience in the clinics and when I'm doing toileting training, I have, again, depending the skills of the child before toileting training. If I have a child that is able to say some words, that is able to follow instruction, that is not having issues going or sitting on the toilet, that is not having issues with removal of clothes, that is able to hold it for a long period of time, then the training is going to be a little bit easier than otherwise. So I have occasion in which I remember having this child. We start the toilet training, and in a day he picked up the whole thing. And because for him, feeling that wetness, he was very concerned about it. So as soon as he noticed the pee coming and feeling that sensation, immediately he was very distressed by it. And so from that point forward, he found ways to get into the toilet, to void in the toilet, which helped also our process. And that maybe is more of an exception than for what usually happens. What usually happens, if right, in 1 or 2 weeks, you are going to see somebody who is now maybe self-initiating some way or another. And so as you are noticing differences in this process, then maybe you can reassess if maybe they need to have more pre-training, or maybe you need to find a better reinforcer, or changing something in the procedures in order to increase the opportunities for the void to happen in the toilet. And an extra for you, sometime when you remove the diaper, children, especially boys, start playing with those private areas. That will happen too. It's a different sensation. So if you don't pay a lot of attention to the behavior, usually it disappears within days. So I want to just mention that because when we remove the diaper, there is a lot more going on over there, and they can sense a lot more in the areas. You keep continuing to the bladder training, meaning keep maintaining on a schedule until you start noticing that now maybe the child is requesting somehow, maybe even going to the bathroom area when they have that sensation. When that is happening, as soon as you start noticing that the child may be self-initiating, then it's the moment to start thinking about self-initiation, which we are going to talk about in this next section. So self-initiation. Self-initiation, the intent is to remove all the prompting that we are providing, meaning the scheduling, meaning maybe we are indicating fading the time to do the toileting, the presentation of the reinforcement, and the giving of the liquid. All that is like a, let's call it an artificial thing that we created in order to have success voiding in the toilet. But in time, we need to fade it, meaning we need to remove all the extra. We need to remove the prompt. We need to remove maybe the schedule. We need to remove some of the reinforcement. We need to remove some of the consumption of water. As these skills or this sensation and the proper behavior, they need to be under natural contingencies, meaning under a typical day, a typical setting. So the child now is able to discriminate and sense through that signaling that there is time to go to the bathroom and find a way to communicate that to their parents or caregivers. So that's the self-initiation in a nutshell. So, but during the self-initiation, we keep maintaining the fluid and the reinforcement. Why is important? Because still, although the child may be self-initiating, the skill is still very brand new. It takes a long time until now the skill, meaning going in the toilet, become a habit. So maintain that look that connection with the whole setting. Maybe now you are thinking about doing longer schedules for the bathroom, to go in the bathroom. So, for example, in the clinic, we start with a 30-minute going into the bathroom and maybe 5 minutes maximum sitting on the toilet. But in time, as we start seeing success, maybe we start increasing the time that we take the child to the bathroom. Maybe we'll move to 45 minutes, to an hour, to 2 hours. And as we are increasing the time that we take them to the bathroom in the schedule, the child also maybe is going to self-initiate in between. And if that happens, that combination happens, now we are giving more opportunity for the child to start requesting to go in the bathroom. Of course, if we notice that the child now is having more kind of accidents, as we are allowing for more self-initiations, then what we need to do is to come back into a schedule that is going to give us opportunity for more success. So this is why data collection is so important, because no matter who is helping with the toileting training at home, we are going to have the data to notice we are now having more accidents, and maybe we need to take the child to the bathroom every hour rather than every 2 hours. And that way we keep maintaining the right environment, the right schedule for that child to be successful. And that is all under this idea of self-initiation, as we are trying to remove all the prompting, all the extras, so the child can do it by themselves. Again, I think I mentioned this, but what you expect when you stop the bathroom schedule or you increase from 30 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, you may see an increase in accidents, and that is okay. Again, keep an eye on it as you are seeing this self-initiation. Now you can start working on the gradual fading of these other prompts. So over here, we sometimes will recommend, after the child is doing 10 times of their own self-initiation, start maybe thinking about reducing the offering of the fluids, maybe removing or reducing or extending the time between dry checks. And maybe we are going to provide a reinforcer every 2 voids rather than every voids. So as you are seeing all these things changing, as we are removing the additional components from the toileting training, always keep an eye on the idea that we need to maintain that success. If you are noticing that we are having more accidents, maybe we need to go back and provide maybe more opportunities for reinforcement rather than every 2 voids. Maybe we'll go back to every 1 void. If you are having success, Maybe now you bring a token board into the bathroom, and every void now you give a token. And when they do 5 now tokens or 5 voids, now you provide the reinforcer, which is a little more natural. But in time, the idea is that the child, without extras, can go in the bathroom, request bathroom or support void there, and get nothing from it. But that is going to be in the long term. So it's important to keep that into consideration. So in order to help with the self-initiation, especially in the beginning, because self-initiation is not going to be perfect neither. But let's say you observe something in the child, they are wiggling, they are doing something funny. Maybe we say, hey, you need to go to the potty, signaling, don't take them, but signal, hey, there's a potty situation. You can also, and I used this before, start talking about the toilet around him without directly talking to him. Maybe we can say toilet, potty, we can mention it. And sometimes that evokes or increases the opportunity for the child to say, potty. And as soon as he says it, we help him to go to the potty. The other thing that we can do is what is called the walk by. As you are providing maybe these drinks, these liquids, or you notice in certain situations, like after waking up, maybe you know for sure they are going to pee because in other occasion that's what they do. So maybe now you do the walk. So rather than saying it, just walk through the area of the bathroom and see if that bathroom engages the behavior of using the toilet. The important thing is that the child is initiating it and not that you are moving the child to the toilet. So, important component for self-initiation. If the child said potty, and that's a part also part of the training, if the child is signaling, gave you a card for toileting, or gave you the signal to toilet, any of those, if that happens, then you must take the child to the restroom. And this is very important to sustain those adaptive behaviors. We are going to talk a little more about different techniques in the end of this presentation under the context of differential reinforcement. So self-initiation training, and this is outlined. So things that we are going to start fading. We start fading fluids. So we start fading the dry checks, and we start preferring self-initiation rather than me prompting the behavior. So the first thing, as we're talking about these fluids and the dry checks, fluids and dry checks help also create additional signals for the child to go to the bathroom. So with the increased consumption of fluids, we are increasing the opportunity for the child to feel that signal. As the bladder get expand, it sends a more urgent of a signal. But the child also needs to start noticing also less intense signals. And that way they can present the behavior on going into the toilet in other occasions, not just when they must go, but when they maybe need to go very soon. So it's important to start fading those fluids so those signals are also relatable to the activity. And then the dry checks are being removed as now you have a really good contingency with relation to when the child needs to go to the bathroom. And of course, you keep maintaining the data collection about when the accident happens and also when the success happens. That's a second section, differential reinforcement. So differential reinforcement for us, meaning that if the child do something like, let's say he does an independent going in the bathroom without even your support, that will maybe even have more of that reinforcement that if the child requests going in the to the bathroom and getting your support. So that is important to differentiate in the end what is the most important behavior for you. And for all of us, it's very important that the child is doing these activities independently. So if for whatever reason the child does this independently without support, that will receive more praise and better rewards than if we are helping or he just say potty and we take it to the toilet. So that's very important. If the child also void a lot rather than a little, we can also provide a little more of that reinforcement for those activities too. So as you see, the better the behavior, the better presentation of an appropriate behavior, then it should have also a differentiation in the reinforcer and also in our presentation of praise. But you want to fade reinforcement. So again, I mentioned to you that you can use also a token board. Some children, they benefit for these token boards. And so that help you to remove a little bit of that one-on-one presentation of reinforcement. So let's say initially you do one void, one reinforcement per success. Maybe in time you can go to two. So you do one and you can say to the child, next one, and you put tokens over there that show the time that they are going to get a reinforcer. You can even generate a board that has 5 stars and you get 1 star for each void. And then at the end of 5, now you provide the reinforcer. So, but in the end is the idea of fading it. And time, you want to also fade the token board. And that way now the child is under the control environment. So this is the process for toileting training. It has a lot of preparation in the beginning. We need to assess all these skills that the child should have prior to. Then, as we prepare for the training, we need to always think about how does it look like to be independent, and every behavior that is closer to that independent void should be kind of reward with more reinforcement, more praises. But in time, as we fade, the whole support and the prompting and the whole structure around the presentation of the appropriate behavior, then the child is going to start initiating and presenting this behavior in a more natural manner. Now they can say, and they are going to mention when they need to use the restroom, or they're just going to go and do the void in the right place. So this is the end of the presentation. There are 10 minutes for questions. Usually through this presentation, I get a lot of very specific question about particular cases. I'm going to try to provide enough information for you to deal with a particular situation with your child. But in the end, situation can be very complex. So if you need any additional support, you can always maybe call to Team for Kids and or contact me, and I will provide additional support if you need so. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. That way, if anybody wants to ask any personal questions, they can.